Welcome to ZoomInData, your go-to channel for in-depth Azure Cloud, Serverless, and modern development interview preparation. In this video, we dive deep into the top 25 Azure Functions introduction interview questions for 2026. Perfect for developers, architects, and anyone preparing for AZ-204 certification or Azure Serverless roles. We cover fundamentals of serverless computing, benefits, use cases, execution model, pricing, scaling, cold starts, runtime evolution, comparisons with competitors, and best practices, all explained in clear, interview-ready technical language to help you confidently ace your next interview. 1. What is Azure Functions and what does serverless mean in this context? Azure Functions is a serverless compute service that lets you run event-triggered code without explicitly provisioning or managing infrastructure. Serverless means Microsoft handles server provisioning, scaling, patching, and maintenance, allowing developers to focus solely on code. Functions execute in response to triggers, HTTP requests, messages, timers, and support multiple languages with pay-per-execution billing. It abstracts infrastructure completely, providing automatic scaling from zero to global demand while charging only for actual compute time. 2. What are the main benefits of using Azure Functions? Automatic scaling handles traffic spikes without manual configuration, from 0 instances during idle to thousands during peaks. Pay-per-use pricing eliminates costs for idle time, billing only for execution duration and memory consumption. Rapid development enables quick deployment of event-driven logic with built-in triggers and bindings to Azure services. Reduced operational overhead removes server management, patching, and infrastructure maintenance responsibilities. 3. Explain the difference between serverless and IaaS. Serverless, like Azure Functions, abstracts infrastructure entirely. Developers write code and the platform manages everything including scaling. PaaS, like App Service, provides a platform with managed runtime but requires configuration of instances, scaling rules, and deployments. IaaS, like VMs, gives full control over servers but requires manual management of OS, patching, scaling, and availability. Serverless offers highest abstraction with lowest operational burden but least control over underlying infrastructure. 4. What are common use cases for Azure Functions? Processing file uploads by triggering on blob storage events for transformation or validation. Building serverless APIs and microservices with HTTP triggers for lightweight backend logic. Scheduled tasks and cron jobs using timer triggers for maintenance or data aggregation. Event-driven integrations connecting Azure services like Event Grid, Service Bus, or IoT Hub. 5. How does Azure Functions fit into event-driven architecture? Functions react to events from various sources via triggers, enabling loosely coupled, scalable systems. Supports publish-subscribe patterns with Event Grid, event hubs and message processing with queues. Enables reactive microservices where components communicate through events rather than direct calls. Facilitates real-time data processing pipelines with low latency and automatic scaling. 6. What is the execution model of Azure Functions? Functions execute in isolated instances managed by the functions host process. Trigger invokes function, which runs code and optionally uses input-output bindings. Execution context provides metadata and logging capabilities. Host manages lifecycle including scaling, language worker processes, and extension loading. 7. Explain the pay-per-use pricing model. Charged based on number of executions and execution duration multiplied by memory allocation, GB seconds. Consumption plan includes free grant of 1 million executions and 400,000 gigabytes seconds monthly. Premium, dedicated plans have different pricing but still consumption-based with always-ready instances. No charges for idle time in consumption plan, only active execution time billed. 8. How does Azure Functions handle scaling automatically? Scale Controller monitors trigger backlog and instance health, adding, removing instances dynamically. Consumption plan scales from 0 to thousands of instances based on demand. Premium plan maintains minimum always-ready instances with elastic scaling beyond. Dedicated plan scales like traditional app service with manual or auto-scale rules. 9. What is a cold start and why does it matter? Cold start is the latency when a new instance is created to serve first request after idle period. Involves language worker initialization, extension loading, and app startup time. Impacts user experience in sporadic workloads with noticeable delay on first invocation. Mitigated by premium plan pre-warmed instances or keeping functions warm. 10. How do you choose between Azure Functions and other compute options? Choose Functions for event-driven, short-running tasks with variable load and pay-per-use needs. Use App Service for long-running web apps requiring custom domains or always-on behavior. Select Container Apps or ACKs for containerized workloads needing orchestration. Pick Logic Apps for low-code integration workflows with built-in connectors. 11. What is the relationship between Azure Functions and Azure Logic Apps? Both are serverless but Functions focus on code-first custom logic while Logic Apps are low-code workflow orchestration. Functions can be called from Logic Apps for complex processing not available in built-in connectors. Logic Apps excel at integration scenarios with hundreds of connectors, Functions for custom code execution. Often used together in hybrid solutions where Logic Apps orchestrate and Functions implement business logic. 12. Explain the evolution of Azure Functions runtimes. V1 was .NET Framework only with limited language support. V2 introduced .NET Core, Node.js, and improved performance with better extension model. V3 added .NET 5/6, Python, and PowerShell with extension bundles. V4 supports .NET 8, isolated worker model, and enhanced language flexibility. 13. What is the maximum execution timeout in different plans? Consumption plan default 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes configurable. Premium plan unbounded execution with minimum always ready instances. Dedicated app service plan unbounded by default. Timer triggers limited to 60 minutes in consumption regardless of function timeout. 14. How does Azure Functions support hybrid cloud scenarios? Functions can run on premises via Azure Arc-enabled servers with consistent development experience. Hybrid connections allow access to on-premises resources from cloud functions. Custom handlers and container deployment support edge scenarios. Consistent tooling and runtime across cloud and hybrid deployments. 15. What are the limitations of Azure Functions? Cold starts can impact latency in sporadic workloads. Execution timeout limits in consumption plan, 10 minutes max. limited control over underlying infrastructure and OS. Stateful scenarios require external storage or durable functions extension. 16. Explain the concept of Functions as a Service, FaaS. FaaS is a cloud computing model where developers deploy individual functions triggered by events. Platform manages infrastructure, scaling, and execution environment completely, billing based on actual execution rather than reserved resources. Enables granular, event-driven microservices architecture. 17. How does Azure Functions compare to AWS Lambda or Google Cloud Functions? All three are serverless FaaS platforms with similar pay-per-use models. Azure Functions has deeper Azure ecosystem integration, Event Grid, Logic Apps. Supports more languages natively including PowerShell and custom handlers. Premium plan offers pre-warmed instances not directly available in competitors. 18. What is the role of the functions host? Functions host, JSON, manages function execution, trigger listening, and extension loading. Coordinates language workers and binding extensions. Handles scaling signals and instance lifecycle. Provides execution context and logging infrastructure. 19. How do you get started with Azure Functions? Create function app in Azure Portal or via CLI with chosen runtime and plan. Use VS Code extension or core tools for local development. Write first function with preferred trigger, HTTP recommended for beginners. Deploy using built-in tools or integrate with GitHub Actions. 20. What is the difference between version 1, v2, v3, and v4 runtimes? v1. .NET Framework only, limited extensions, deprecated. v2. .NET Core, Node.js support, improved extension model. v3. .NET 6, Python, PowerShell, extension bundles. v4. .NET 8, isolated worker standard, enhanced performance and language support. 21. Explain the isolated worker model introduction. Isolated worker moves language runtime out of host process for better isolation and version flexibility. Enables running newer .NET versions than host supports. Supports middleware pipeline similar to ASP.NET Core. Improves cold start performance and dependency management. 22. How does Azure Functions support AI workloads? Easy integration with Azure OpenAI via HTTP bindings or SDK. Durable functions orchestrate complex AI agent workflows. Premium plan ensures consistent performance for AI inference. Semantic kernel integration for advanced agent patterns. 23. What is the future roadmap for Azure Functions, as of 2026? Deeper AI agent support with built-in orchestration patterns. Enhanced flex consumption plan with more granular scaling. Improved isolated worker performance and language support. Better hybrid, edge scenarios via Arc and container improvements. 24. How do you estimate costs for a new functions project? Calculate expected executions per month and average duration, memory. Use Azure Pricing Calculator with estimated GB seconds and executions. Factor in free grant, 1M executions, 400 kbps. Consider premium reserved instances for predictable workloads. 25. Best practices for deciding when to use Azure Functions. Choose for event-driven, short-running tasks with variable load patterns. Avoid for long-running processes better suited to containers or VMs. Evaluate cold start tolerance and required execution duration. Consider integration needs with other Azure services. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you prepare for your Azure Functions interview, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your network. Don't forget to subscribe to ZoomInData and hit the bell icon for more in-depth cloud computing, serverless, and Azure interview prep videos every week. Drop your questions or topic requests in the comments. Let's zoom in on your success together. Thank you for watching. If this video helps you prepare for your Azure Functions interview, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your network. Don't forget to subscribe to ZoomInData and hit the bell icon for more in-depth cloud computing, serverless, and Azure interview prep videos every week. Drop your questions or topic requests in the comments. Let's zoom in on your success together.